Berserker! Yeah!
Mill Serp Garage. Thank you, Berserker, wherever you are. We cannot forget, this channel would not be where it is today without the infamous Berserker. So what do we got here? The Winchester Model 100. We're going to dig into this guy. I got a little bit of info. Not much, really. But I think with this video, we're going to do a little bit of learning together. I have not taken this rifle apart. I gave it a good cleaning. It's a new purchase. I gave it a good cleaning, but I have not had it apart. So I thought maybe we would, poke around a little bit together. It'd be a learning experience for the both of us, you know what I mean? Plus, we've got some restocking from the awesome people over at Realistic Snap Caps, and there's a reason. There's a reason why we most definitely need Realistic Snap Caps today, and we're going to get into that. And what do we need? We need 308 caliber Realistic Snap Caps today, and I did not have that caliber. This, believe it or not, is the first thing I've ever purchased in 308. And how could that be, you might ask? I don't know, I would then say. 308. We'll get into these Realistic Snap Caps later and exactly why they're going to be incredibly useful today. We also have 273 Winchester, which has a little bit of a history with this rifle here. We're not actually going to be using them today, but they have a little bit of history. What do we have here? We have 9 mil. We have 45 cal. We have 5.45 by 39. Interesting little Russian rounds, kind of like the Russian 223. We're going to do a video coming up soon on some of this surplus ammo. A little surplus ammo story in a video, and be able to relate to those. And 6.5 Creedmoor, which we may have like a little lend-lease thing going on soon to feature something in this caliber. But we'll get into the Realistic Snap Caps a little later on. I'm going to tell you how awesome these things are. I'm going to tell you how you can get a deal on these things through this channel. I'm going to tell you exactly what to do. And trust me, you will not be sorry. Let me swing the light around. Had some glare issues, so I go back over here. All right, so let's get into some history right off the bat. There's not much on YouTube about this gun, but they all talk about the history, so you're definitely not lacking in that. The few videos that I've seen, they do talk about, when they were made, stuff like that. So we'll cover it here. They were made from 61 to 75. They were first introduced in 60, but didn't hit the catalogs till 61. They technically, I think, left the catalogs in 73, but we're still around in 74 and 75. You know how they use up old parts. You know what I mean? There's a 22-inch barreled rifle, which is this guy right here. There was also a 19-inch barreled carbine. The calibers that these things were chambered in. Look at that wood. American walnut. Yeah, this is why this example that I purchased right here. I had to go there. It was a little bit more than what you'd normally pay for these things, but it was just exceptional. It just looked exceptional. I had to go there. Plus, it came with this awesome scope. I'll show you what it is later. It came with this beautiful sling. And it wasn't missing anything. You know, like a lot of these are just missing stuff. Like this sight hood. I saw one I almost bought and just noticed at the last minute that was damaged. And I'm like, see, what's the point? I mean, if you're going to be spending money to get it into the condition that you want, you might as well spend that money right off the bat, and it was never messed with. You know what I mean? Calibers. Where was I? They were made in 308, 243, and 284. I really wanted to break down what calibers were available from what years and which one, because they're different from the rifle to the carbine. But I couldn't find any accurate information that I could trust. They were like every source I could find. It was all over the place. Basically, it looks like the 308 was available in both, right from the get-go till the end of production. I think the carbine was introduced in '67, so it wasn't around at the very beginning. It was like they came out with the carbine in '67. So, and then I think the 284 Winchester was only available in the carbine for like a couple of years. So that would be like the rarest one if you really wanted to go for rarity. And also the 284 wasn't available in every year for the rifle either. The popular one calibers were 308 and 243. But I couldn't even break down 243. I got different answers all over the place. But 308, most common. 243, a little bit more rare. 284, the rarest, especially in the carbine. I think if you just went with that, would be accurate information. Okay, gas operated, very similar system to the M14 service rifle, which is pretty cool. Rotating bolt with 3 locking lugs and a 5-shot magazine, which sometimes when you find them for sale, they're advertised as 4-shot magazines, and sometimes when you see when the nomenclature for this rifle, they call it a 5-shot. We're going to get into that too. It's a little odd. But I guess you could call it a 5-shot magazine because 5 rounds fit in it. But we'll cut to like why there's some little idiosyncrasies with that. I thought I had more basic information for you, but I really don't. Let's just here's what I could show you. I could show you where do I have it? Here's the our Winchester book. Let's look in the here's our Winchester book by Watrous. What is the name of this book after all? The History of Winchester Firearms, 66 to 75 is the one. I got a couple of versions of this, but we'll go with this one. So what I like about this book is it goes in like chronological order, you know what I mean? So if we were to we did the Model 77. Remember what came right before that was the Model 50 shotgun. So from the Model 50 shotgun, auto-loading shotgun, all of a sudden this auto-loading thing was all falling together for them. The Model 50 shotgun was great compared to the 2 before that were a little, lacking, let's say. This was very popular, the Model 77 self-loading 22 rifle. We have a video up there on that. Very popular. A lot of comments on that video. Everyone loves that rifle, The Model 88 was a lever action. A lot in common with the Model 100. So it's kind of like a family, brother and sister kind of, you know what I mean? The 88. Then they came out with a 55. I think, does this thing fire from an open bolt? This thing fires from an open bolt, I believe. It's a weird 22. It's a single shot 22, but it's called an automatic because when you pull the trigger, the bolt slams home. It's an open bolt, so the bolt slams home, it fires, the bolt opens back up again and ejects it. This is a pretty wild 22. I gotta see if I can find one of those. But so that was one. Then the 59 was the 50 with the fiberglass barrel and the alloy receiver. Right after that, the M14 Springfield. military rifle, right into the automatic self-loading rifle. Here they are, the rifle and the carbine. Now the rifle, if you notice, you see this type of checkering pattern that's on this one? That was after 64. You know, with these Winchesters, there's the pre-64 thing. There was some kind of changeover in the company, and everyone goes for those pre-64 ones. Well, post-64, it was impressed checkering, and it had this like weird, this type of weird pattern where it was almost like leaves, like kind of flowery kind of look. I forget what they call that. I wanted to remember for this video, but I forgot. And then here's some of the info. You could take a look and see if you could figure out exactly when what caliber was made by reading that. See, then you'll see what I mean. But this would be pre-64 because the checkering is cut checkering. And it has just this regular, more conventional pattern there, you know. And the scope here, let's take a look at the scope. It's a Leupold. That's what came on here. I think it's 3 to 9 power. It's awesome. I really like it. How did it get so dirty on the top there? Should have definitely, should have cleaned the rifle up a little bit before having the video. You know, that's kind of rude. Well, I love the scope. The mounts are awesome. Nothing had to be drilled here. It is tapped. It's like little plugs that come out. There's, what do they call that when there's like a receiver? You know, it's like open sight, but like an aperture sight screws into here and comes across the front to use as a rear sight. It has the ability for that. And what's really cool with these sights, it has this like tip up. It's like Ruger 1022 looking thing. This thing's been around forever, this sight. But open sights must look really cool on this thing. The front sight is pretty awesome looking. It's got a bead in there and the hood. That's nice. The crown on this is nice too. Look at the crown. Very pretty. And yeah, where do we go from here? Let's talk about the dark side of this rifle. So you're like, wow, there's so many good things here. Where's the bad? Well, there's a little bad. There was a recall. And I do a little reading for you. Found this nice forum online where somebody had some serious info that I could read and make it look like I know what I'm talking about. So, there was a safety recall in 790. July of 1990. Here it is. Product safety warning and replacement notice. Attention owners of Winchester Model 100 rifles and carbines, please read this notice. In July of 90, the following product safety warning was issued by Winchester. It's come to our attention that the firing pin in the Winchester Model 100 rifle or carbine may break due to use and metal fatigue and become lodged in the breech bolt face. Ooh. If this occurs, firearm may fire before the action is locked, causing severe damage to the firearm and possibly injury or death to the shooter and bystander. Warning, do not shoot your Winchester Model 100 rifle or carbine. That's in big red letters. Repair and replacement. A new firing pin has been designed to replace the firing pin originally made for the Winchester Model 100 rifle and carbine. The new firing pins will be available in April 91. If you own a Winchester Model 100 rifle or carbine, please send your firearm to one of the authorized Winchester Model 100 firing pin replacement centers indicated below. The Winchester Model 100 will be inspected, the firing pin replaced and tested, and the firearm returned to you. The inspection, replacement testing, and return postage will be accomplished at no cost to you. If other repair or maintenance work is authorized by you to be performed on the firearm, such work will be at your cost. So they're basically saying you got to pay the shipping to get it to us, and then we'll take care of everything else and send it back to you. So there were 4 places in Canada W.R. Long Gunsmiths in Cobourg, Ontario. Frank Lefevre and Sons. Love the name of that gun shop. Lefevre Gun Shop. Lee Center, New York. Bolsa Gunsmithing in Westminster, California. And New Line Guns in Harvester, Montana. And then there's an 800 number you could call them or write to Winchester firing pin replacement notice. And there's an address. So apparently, the difference between the old and the new firing pins, I'm going to put up some pictures here for you. There was a flat that was milled into the newer pins because apparently they would break in the center of that long, thin pin part, you see, and the spring that held it back would hold back the main body of it, but the front part that would have broken off could stay lodged forwards. And when the bolt closed, since it's a rotating bolt, it would close and potentially set off the round before the bolt was able to rotate the locking lugs into place, which would violently, with a 308, I mean, let me tell you, the 308, it's a trip hammer of a round. It really is. And we'll get into the round. You also talk of this interesting history here, both with the round and with the gun. And in 1960, when they were designing this rifle, this was a pretty new round. The 308 was pretty new. And it does have ties to the 300 Savage, which we just did the model, Savage Model 99. So there's a tie in there too. You know, this is always like stepping stones across the pond when you do these videos. It's funny, no matter what you pick, they're always going to somehow have a connection, you know what I mean? So that's the connection there, which is the 308 is basically a offshoot, a family member of the 300 Savage. And we'll take a look at that in a little bit. But yeah, so that's the difference between the two firing pins. Now, with me, there's a number to call up. So when I bought this, I called them up, and I had read online, somebody else said they called this number also, and that you give them the serial number, and then they tell you whether it was replaced already or not, like they kept records. And I saw a couple of places online where they said, yeah, they told me it was replaced, but I had the old firing pin in there. I mean, it could have been sent in and replaced in 1990, you know what I mean? But 1990 was 31 years ago, you know what I mean? So if 1991, let's say, is 30 years ago. So anything can happen in 30 years with the gun, so it could be switched back again, you know what I mean? Who knows? But I called up, and they take your information, and then this is what they emailed me. They emailed me, sure enough, the same thing. I'd like to think that they really are keeping accurate records, but it was kind of like, I was like, yeah, they're probably going to say the same thing to me, and sure enough, they did. They said it was replaced in 91. So, doing a little bit more research, I found this. This is what with the same chat thread that I'm reading now, but this guy, I should give this guy credit. Let's see, what's his screen name on this chat thread? I can't find it. All right, so the responsibility for the recall apparently was on Olin. I don't know much about the history of Winchester, but there's a tie there with something going on there in the 60s, so into the 70s. Maybe even as far as into the 90s, since they were dealing with this recall. As they were the parent company at time of manufacture. No, so they're saying in the 60s they were the parent company. Olin set up regional recall centers at 3 established U.S. gun shops. There was a manufacturing delay in the replacement firing pins, and a backlog occurred. Some collectors also didn't like the idea of shipping their guns long distances. Olin then also authorized other gun shops to make the required alterations. Upon completion of the recall, the shops were to test fire the firearm and stamp an assigned letter on the inside top of the receiver as seen through the magazine well with the bolt retracted. This raised my eyebrows. I'm like, wow, something I could actually check here. The letter B represented Bolsa, L was Lefevre, N was for New Line guns, and X was for all other independent shops. However, this identification information did not get communicated to some of the smaller shops at the start of the project. The only way to tell if it's been modified, if the letter is not present, is to take, and still, I mean, the letter could be present, but if this is a serious thing that they're talking about, you should check it anyway, whether there's a letter or anything. So you shouldn't say check it if the letter isn't present. You should check, if there's a way to check it, period. You take the barrel and action out of the stock, remove the trigger guard assembly, and try to rotate the firing pin by twisting it. If it does not rotate, the firing pin recall has been performed. So, as you can see, I'll pull up this picture again. You see that flat that they manufactured was to strengthen that long, thin part that was breaking. And that like cylindrical block that you see is kind of like what holds the firing pin. The original one must have just had a little hole in it, so the firing pin just fit right through the little hole. But with this newer firing pin, it had to have a keyhole shape so that those milled flat parts would fit. And if it was like that, it wouldn't rotate. Obviously, if you grabbed it and tried to turn it, you wouldn't be able to turn it. So that's how you would be able to tell one from the other. So what did I do? I said, well, let me get in here. Let me take the magazine out. The magazine, by the way, I wanted to get replacement magazines. You know I'm always going to go off on a tangent, so I'm going to go off. But I'm going to remember where we were at. But this is the original magazine, and you can see that I'm going to have to zoom in here to do this other part anyway. You can see that the Model 100 part is milled into the follower, whereas in some of these ones that I found that say they're not aftermarket, the M100 is raised. You see that? And I don't know. I don't know if I trust them. I was going to buy a different one, and I opted not to. I'm just going to stick with this guy. I mean, how many magazines do I need for this thing, if you really think about it? So here we go. Let's go underneath. Let's look up into here. Let's get the light positioned properly. You know what? I got my flashlight here if I need it. Now this is going to be tough because I got to hold the sling out of the way. I have to operate the slide, and then I got to get the light. And what do we have? Can we see it? Can we see it? I don't know if we can see it. Ugh. There it is. Right up at the top there. Can you see it? Oh man, that's hard to hold. Let me see. I gotta get a rag in there to wipe it. But I definitely saw it, but I want you guys to get eyes on this. Man, this is some bolt out there. Where is it? It's there. Let's zoom in a little more. There it is. You see the B? It's there. It's right on top of that round dot that you see there. Right on top of the flashlight now. There's a B there. Oh, yes, there is. And the B, once again, was for Bolsa Gunsmithing in California. So it was marked. They say it was done. It's marked. Let's see. We'll get in there in a little bit. We're going to play around with this gun for hours. Get comfortable. Get comfortable, ladies and gentlemen. YouTube, by the way, relaxed their policies on taking guns apart. They were always saying that taking it apart was showing how to manufacture it. They didn't like that. Taking it apart, they didn't like. They would demonetize the videos. They would bury them. And you got very few hits on them, very few views. They wouldn't suggest it to people or anything. It was really tough to survive that way for a while. This channel was having trouble like that. But now they are allowing you to disassemble As long as you're not showing modification, which is cool, because we're not showing any modification, we're just showing how it is. And if you take it apart to show how to maintain it, how to check it, how to clean it, how to get the parts, how to get the bolt apart to clean it. And that's all I ever want to do, or show how it works. I don't want to show how to modify it. I just want to show how it functions. And that it's part of maintenance, because if it's not functioning properly, how would you know if you didn't know how it's supposed to function, right? Exactly. So the magazine. Let's get to that. Let's bounce all over the place. Let's just keep you guessing as to where we're going to go next. 3. It's supposed to be a 4-round magazine, which, by the way, the 2, what caliber again? I lost my papers. Where's my papers? I'm sorry. The 284 Winchester chambered ones only hold 3 rounds in the mag. I don't know why that is, but I read that. Look, it easily holds 5. There's room even. So it's not like I'm like altering something, or like, doing something it's not supposed to do, like, just like wedging another one in. It fits perfect, you know what I mean? And the magazine now does not go inside the gun. That's the issue, is that it won't load. It won't go inside the gun with 5. So what do? I'm going to show you what you do. Take it out. I'm going to put it in the position like I'm out there hunting. So then whatever. This is how I'm holding it. I'm out there actually using it. They put a nice arrow on here so you know which way to load it, which way to point the magazine, and which way to point the rounds when you're loading it. By the way, realistic snap caps. All right, let's take a little detour. Realistic snap caps are perfect for this type of thing. Why? We have a potential firing pin hang-up issue with the gun that we now want to test the magazine, test the action, see how it functions. You never fool with live ammo to do anything like this. Not just because we have a potential problem doesn't mean we mess with live ammo. Just never, ever. You cannot accidentally shoot a gun without ammunition. You can consider this a tool and not ammunition. I know it looks an awful lot like a bullet. I know you look at it and you see like the danger looks like it's there, the same as a bullet. It's not, because there's no powder in here. It's inert. It's totally inert. There isn't even a primer. It's silicone here. So if you don't have ammunition, you cannot have an accidental or a negligent discharge at all. It's impossible. So you just have to be smart enough to make sure you're using realistic snap caps when you're doing something like this. So again, magazine will not go in the gun. What do? You maintain pressure here, but you don't get your skin between the rifle and this lip here, because you will get pinched. But you just maintain pressure with your palm as you cycle the gun. And when you do that, I'm trying to get the right position. It's not easy to do this on camera here, but when you do that, you'll be able to cycle it, and if you're maintaining pressure, the magazine will click into place. And then you'll have the 4 rounds, which apparently only with 4 rounds can you insert it into the rifle. That's why they say it's a 4-round magazine. But if you do what I just did, or if you really got a lot of time to waste, you can put it in with 4 rounds, cycle around in, take the magazine back out, put a round in, put it back in the gun. You could do that if you want. But what I just did is an easy way to load the 5 rounds into the magazine and put it into the gun. A good way to do this, if you really wanted to be ultra safe, actually, if you really wanted to do it right, would be, because you are manipulating it in a weird way, to put the safety on. You could very easily have the safety on when you do this, and same thing, just by cycling it. There you go. And then at least, you're cycling and holding the mag, so if you're worried that you might accidentally hit the trigger or something, just put the safety on, and before you shoot, take the safety off. By the way, it's got a cross-bolt safety, in case I didn't mention that. And smooth as silk right here. As far as, whoops, spoke too soon. What just happened? Not sure what just happened. Can we pick that up like that? Yes, we can. You know what it is? I just, didn't, what's happening? All right, let's try that again. Let's try that again. What's happening there is you can't baby it. You have to pull it back. You have to let go. You have to let it slam home because it's the only way it's going to pick up the rounds. In other words, if you baby it like that, you're not going to pick it up. You have to let it drop on each one. And the magazine itself is the hold open. As you'll see right here, you take the magazine out, the bolt closes. The magazine itself is the hold open. And trust me, if we run these through and pull the trigger on them, because you can see I already did some function testing just to make sure the firing pin's working. And you can see the marks that we're making on the silicone quote-unquote primers. Yeah, so that's the story. That's how to load it. That's the problem that apparently can be going on with it. We have to check this firing pin. Oh, there is one other thing that's really cool. Somebody mentioned there is a way to see the firing pin. It's not the easiest gun, like to take apart and get down to the firing pin. If we actually pull this off, it's going to be pretty crazy. But let's see if I can. I'm never going to be able to get in there. But you don't have to pull the bolt back this time, but can you see way... No, you're not going to be able to see. Way back in there. Way back in the back. I could see back in here there's a space. And if I look in that space, I could see the head of the firing pin. You could almost just about see it. Oh, I badly want you guys to be able to see it, but it's not happening. But you can see the actual, where the hammer hits, the part of the firing pin that the hammer hits, you could see in there. What that's really going to do for you, I don't know, but there was somebody, I think if you really know these things really well, you could look at the head of that firing pin, the part that the hammer hits, and you can tell if it's the newer or the older version. But the pictures I have of the firing pins, they do look identical. So I'm not really sure, maybe there's different versions of the new one that you can tell, and maybe some of them you can't. Maybe that was the story. So I'm going to, let's get things together here, and let's take this guy apart. Let's get started. What do we need? We need our Wheeler Engineering screw bits for sure. We need a gunsmithing screwdriver set for this. Let's put that down over here. And we're going to need our Weaver punches. We're going to need some punches. So we got some punches here. Those over here. So here's our exploded diagram, thanks to, of course, Numrich Gun Parts. If you need anything for this guy, take a look online, see what they have. But very M14-ish, you know? What was it about the M14 that made... that was different than like other gas designs? The M14 was different in a way. Which book breaks that down? Maybe it's here. Let's take a look at the NRA Guide to Firearms Assembly, Rifles and Shotguns. Here's the Model 100. And what do they say? Initial production was in .308 Winchester with 243 and 284 added later on. 19-inch barrel carbine was offered from 67 to 73. Gas operated. rotating bolt, 3 locking lugs. The gas system of the Model 100 was like that used in the M14 service rifle. A specific explanation here. An expansion chamber in the gas piston allowed gradual buildup of pressure against the piston, giving a smoother push to the operating parts than is the case when the gas acts directly against the face of the piston, as it does in the M1 Garand. No adjustment of the Model 100 gas system was needed to change from one bullet weight to another, and the rifle functioned quite well with hand-loaded ammunition of adequate power. Its short barrel and good balance earned the Winchester Model 100 high marks for its handling qualities. So it was that M14 gas system that it was praised for. And let's get a little more light going over here. And get a few tools together here that I need. And we'll get started. Be right back. All right. Just wanted to get some tools together. Let's try this disassembly process here. Again, these magazines, I've seen higher capacity magazines. I've seen aftermarket ones. I've seen ones that are supposed to be original, but I have yet to see one that looks exactly like this. I've seen close, but not exactly. So for now, I'm just gonna stick with that one. So, first order of business: front sling swivel. Again, when you do these screws, look at the screwdriver, how fat that is. Make sure that every single bit is fitted to the screws that you're taking out. Otherwise, you run the risk of marring them. It's interesting. There's some screw. Wow. Let's make sure we're not going to lose this. That's not going anywhere. So we switch gears. And we have to do this screw right here. All right. Now what we're going to do, we're going to slide the action back and lift the wood away. And out. There we go. Let's see if we have any numbers in here or anything. So it's interesting to check that out. Oh, nothing jumps out at me. But, nice piece of wood there, I'll tell you that. That off on the side. Let's wipe off a little of the excess oil and grime off of here. So we could see this this gas system right here. It's tapping off the gas from right here in the barrel. And here's the piston here. There's the gas blowing into this piston here, operating the bolt. Pretty simple. This operating rod here. This is the part that needs to come off next here. This half moon here, you pull back to expose this pin right here. You push out that pin, and that's supposed to release the trigger group here, which is you have to watch because you have this captive rod here with the springs. So let's see, what's the smallest? This is the smallest punch here. I wonder if that'll be small enough to push this out. Yep, it certainly is. Let's see if we don't lose that. There it is right there. So when we push this out, we want to make sure we don't lose let's see. That's a good way to hold all this in. Alright, yeah, you do have to be careful that this doesn't shoot everywhere. Now, usually I take pictures of what's coming apart, but this time I have you guys here on video. So there we go. So this whole assembly here, nothing else in there, right? This is this rod. This rod here goes in here with the small spring over it, then the larger spring over it, and then that's all captive into here. Let's see. Interesting. And that's it. No other rod. Let's take a look at the breakdown here. Just want to be sure. So yeah, it's the rod here, the small spring and the larger spring. That's it. Thought there was a two-piece rod, but evidently not. So there's our trigger group with the hammer. And manipulate this. clean this as necessary. How come I was able to pull the trigger once, but that's it. Interesting. So we'll leave all this together. Give that a nice cleaning when necessary. Here's the firing pin right here. And we see this is all gas blown here and dirty. Be good to clean it. Here's the firing pin right here. Can we rotate it? And the answer is no. So you can almost be sure that in here is a newer type firing pin. Maybe it's easier here to now see the B stamped in there. Can we see that a little bit easier? Not really. But it's good at this stage to give a good cleaning here. This clip has to come off next. It's a clip that fits into these two recesses here on either side to hold this into place. See the best way. Can I get this off by hand? Probably not. Let me take a close look in here. See what the best way is to get that off. I think I could just hook it off with one of my picks. How about this one? There we go, there's one side. See if we get off the other side. Don't want to break this. Stubborn little guy. Got one side. You know what? Let's do this approach. This is a little bit better. Yep. Instead of just prying and having it fling off, it'd probably be easier to muscle it off is better. It's stuck on the knurled part of that cap. And this unscrews. Yeah, this is there's like a little hole in the cap here to bleed off. Then let's see. With the action open. There we go. Just lift this out completely. Oh, it just comes right out the back that way. There we go. bolt. Let's see. This is where it starts to get a little. So it starts to get a little muddy. I don't really remember from what I was watching. But this pin here pushes out. And then the bolt comes out of here. Definitely do with a good cleaning. Set that off to the side. Here's the firing pin. Yep. Definitely the newer style. Firing pin and spring. And another pin here. That comes out here. This is where the firing pin goes through. This would have had to have been changed with the firing pin to allow for that keyway that this fits in instead of just a hole. And then it's a bolt coming apart like this. Here's the bolt face. And this extractor right here, there are different versions of this extractor here that I see for sale. Throw up a couple of pictures of that. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. That's disassembly. So we're aware of what firing pin we have, at least. Very nice. We're gonna do a nice cleaning here and get everything back together. So we'll be right back with you in a minute. Let's do a little more research on the 308 round. A couple of ins and outs with this guy. Be back shortly. All right, so after some reassembly, I thought this would be really cool to show. So had all these parts out, and I'm just really examining the function here. And inside the receiver here, you can see in here where the locking lugs are. Let me need some dedicated light here. What an unprofessional setup we got going on here. Oh, there we go. So you could see in here, inside the receiver here. Now I don't have a finger to point with, but basically locking lug in there, locking lug over there, and you can see when the bolt closes here. You can see how those locking lugs rotate into position. See that? That's why if the firing pin was protruding as it's closing like this, it could be enough to set off the round right here as soon as it contacts, before those locking lugs have a chance to turn and lock into place. See, like right now, if there's a round that's set off, it travels all the way down the barrel till it reaches here in the barrel, passes this point. That's the only time now the gas starts flowing here and starts pushing this back to unlock. So then you'd be safe. But you see, it's spring loaded here, the firing pin. But if it were broken, the spring would hold this rear part back, but that front broken off piece would still be able to stay protruded. That was potentially the problem there. But I just thought this locking up right here is pretty cool. That looks awesome. So now we'll continue cleaning, clean this part of the gas tube, get that on here. Here's the piston right here. Coming along nice. So, boy, that was some cleaning job. That was a lot of work with the picks here and the small tools. Scraping a lot of crap out of the little crevices inside the receiver and everything, but outwardly, sometimes they don't seem that dirty, but when you really get into the nitty-gritty. But man, this action feels smooth now. Nice. It's all back together, all the little pins are in. And we're ready to put it in the stock. Maybe we should BLO this thing. What do you think? You know what? The stock is so pretty. Yeah, let's do that. Let's do a little BLO. That's a 15-minute process of sitting here watching TV and transfer BLO into like a little cup like this. You know, when I'm out getting some kind of food and I got a little dipping sauce or something like that, I grab one of these. And they're excellent to use for this, so you don't have to struggle around with a big, huge bottle. And, we get a little like this. And then we sit here watching TV, rubbing it in for a good 20 minutes. This part here come out. Oh, this must be, maybe that's, that's screwed in with a long stock bolt, it seems. That's weird that they would still have a bolt through the stock, even if it's just for this piece. But it does seem to be screwed in. We'll clean this edge. See, this is what I'm talking about. See that edge right there? Didn't get to this, but in order to make these mating surfaces made up right, see all this seems outwardly clean, but if you get in here and you scrape it, you come up with all this junk. It's all wedged in there. So we'll do a little bit more cleaning and a little bit BLOing, and we'll be back to restock this thing. That's what I'm talking about. Freshly BLO'd stock. Oh yeah. It loses a teeny bit of this luster, like overnight when it soaks in, but that's the whole idea. But man, you just sit here, I'm just sitting here watching TV. You get really close to, you form a really close bond with your guns when you're sitting there BLOing a stock, because you just sit there, you're feeling every curve, every checkered part. When you're rubbing it, you actually feel it heat up and soak in. Nice. All right. I would have kept you guys with me during the whole process of working on this, but man, trust me, you guys would have bailed. You would not have hung in there that long. Oh, and also, by the way, see how, look in there now. See that gap in this whole piece inside here all cleaned out professionally. So we get that lined up. Man, this is some action to manipulate, and you have to just continually do it. Oh, you know what? I think it's easier to do. Let's see. I have to push it up against something. It's really difficult just flat on the table to do this. Try one more time. Let's try it like this. Boy, what I won't do for you guys. Trust me, this isn't ineptness. This is just trying to get it done flat on a table with everybody watching. It just won't fall right in. That's the problem. Let's see. All right. And you gotta wonder what's in the way here. Doesn't seem like this is traveling all the way back because the bolt's not in right. Curious as to why this isn't sliding all the way back to here. See that it's stopping, it's hanging up a little bit. Could I maybe not have the bolt in right? Oh, if I have to take this whole thing apart again. Thinking something's wrong because it's not traveling all the way back. Look at this. All right, so after going back in and manipulating the way the bolt was put back together, now the rearward travel does cover this whole worn area, see? So there was a problem with how the bolt was put back together and orientated. See, now I wish I would have done it along with you guys to save you the trouble, but this was helpful in the NRA guide to assembly of rifles and shotguns. This picture was very helpful. I'll pull that up a little closer. See that diagram? It shows how it needs to be orientated when you put that pin in. That helped. It's still not the most detailed looking drawing, but where it shows bottom, you just got to remember that the bottom is the part of the bolt that hooks into these two rails right here. Then you'll know what they mean by bottom of the bolt, and then it's easy to orientate the front of the bolt. Well, anyway, it is traveling all the way to here, so I'm going to finish reassembly of this. Yeah, let's see if this works. See if you could tag along with me here and see. This might be covered when we put this in, so let's give a nice wipe down here. We've had our hands all over it. Oh, I didn't fully put this retaining clip on. I found that an easy way to do this clip is to just leave it hanging off the top here. And then all you have to do is pull it down into place. Let's do that side, and now this side. There's one side, and there's the other side. All right, in place. Now, let's get some of these tools out of the way. Alrighty. Start the spring in here. you gotta kind of use this spring guide here to collapse the whole thing into place. Oh, let's hold on to it. There we go. Got it. Ooh, we had it, and then we lost it. Right there. That's it. Now we hold it all together. Now the pin to come in from the bottom. Let's get the pin. Where's the, oh, we lost it again. Okay, I got it. I got it back. Where's that pin? All right. Now we push the bolt handle back far enough to expose where this pin goes. Oh, these glasses got to go. What's obscuring that? It should just go right in. What is the problem? What is in the way? You know what? I got a better way to do this. It's always a smart thing to do is you take your punch and you run your punch through first. Just can't imagine what's... Oh, and up there, up. This doesn't seem to be smoothly moving. There we go. So what's the problem? Right there. Run the punch through. There we go. So once you got the punch through, you know, it's not just going to fly apart. You could kind of try to go back the other way with the pin. There we go. That does work. Question was any of that on film? Clunk into place there. I relax this just a bit, and there we go. Now the pin's in the right spot. Now let's see if it cycles all the way back. Now it's all together like it was before when it wasn't cycling all the way back. Whoa. Gotta keep that right there. And let's see. I don't have the strength to move this bolt anymore. It's still not going all the way back. Maybe it was just right before. It's not going all the way back now. I don't get it. It was doing it before I put the trigger group on. It's baffling. Baffling. Without the trigger group, it was going all the way back. And I couldn't put the magazine in before. And I still can't put the magazine in with the action like this. Why would that stop the magazine from going in? I don't get it. I don't get it. Why isn't it going all the way back? On it. All right, found what my mistake was. I put it together without the spring, so I don't have the spring fighting with that to like figure out how this goes in. What I was doing was I wasn't orientating this pin that goes in here properly. And it was it was not, the trigger group was forward. The spring was pushing it back, but I didn't have the pin through the proper hole in the trigger guard. So then what that was doing was locating the trigger guard slightly forward, preventing the stock from going on and preventing the slide, the bolt head from going all the way back like it's doing now. So this is how it has to go together with the springs in here. But this is a good opportunity to clean it all off, get it all nice and wiped down, oil the piston a little bit, get everything back after touching it all this time, get everything back into nice clean oiled condition. And then getting this spring in place here, very tricky. It's going to be very tricky, but at least I figured I might have had the bolt orientated properly the first time, but maybe the problem was both things. Because I think the bolt was in the wrong spot. When I looked at that diagram, so I guess that might have been a problem later on anyway. So it's good that this wasn't right. But I'm fairly certain everything's straight up now. It's just a question of getting the spring in. I'm not going to torture you with this process. But I'll be back in a minute. The magic of YouTube videos is going to make it look so easy. Be right with you. Man, let me tell you, that was a pain in the ass. But now you can see the trigger group orientated properly in the receiver now. Definitely. I see the difference in how it sits, and you can see the operation now covers the whole part here that's worn. It's good to pay attention to things like that. That's what I noticed. That's what jumped out at me when I operated it and I saw that it didn't move all the way. It had to do with this connection here and the pin. Not the easiest thing to get going when you got to compress the spring. You have two different moving parts, plus you have to move this back to access the pin there. But it's in now, the magazine. I'm confident it should fall into place. There we go. Yep, the hold open should work now. Yep. And there we go. So let's get a little lubrication going here, and then get it into the stock. All right, so we're getting rid of our tools. Get our screwdriver ready with the proper bits. Now, since we're going to bed it in the stock, we want to make sure anything was exposed here that's going to be inaccessible is nice and clean. No hand oils here. That includes down here. Now let's see. Just to be sure now. Don't use these often, but there's going to be an awful lot of touching going on here. Let's get these on. Nice. It's nice and lubricated. The gas piston. All right. Let's get our freshly BLO'd stock back in action again. Shouldn't have the issue we had before. It should just fall right into place as soon as we pull the bolt handle back. Let's see. This is the last time we have to pull the bolt handle back in an awkward position. Let's hope. Why is it only going back? Has to be able to retract into there. Yeah, there we go. That's how to do it. And it will fall in right here. There, you have to like set the magazine. The magazine. That's the trick right there. This gets hung up. Also, that's something that I could see could drive somebody completely insane if I didn't just tilt it that way and notice it. There's a lot of things on this gun that can drive you completely insane, I'm noticing. Didn't notice that this screw right here was a little gummed up. And take off the gloves now. Let's just put a tiniest shot of ballast oil on these threads. This is a little lubed up here. And I realized how much tension was on this sling. We should relax this a bit just for the assembly process. Let's see if we can't do that. Let's just get this started. Tempted to pull this completely through and out. Don't want to cross thread this, and it's putting this unusual angle on it. Let's do that. There we go. Just wanted to get that started. We'll get this started. There's always a drop on the end of the tube of those red plastic tubes. And whenever you need a drop, it's always right there. Very convenient. Yeah, that feels good. It's not moving it left or right or any way into place. Felt like that bedded nicely. Yeah, and this is my finger. Able to screw this in with my fingers right here too, so that feels nice. Give a nice little snug here. We don't want to go too crazy. Back down here just for a nice little... Yeah, there you go. We're done. Let's go back through here. Here. This is a nice sling. The cool thing about this guy when I was looking to make one of these mine was that this had everything. It was in good shape. And it had these accessories like the sling and the scope that came along with it in the sale. And I like stuff like that. I liked how it was fitted, and I liked that I could keep it how the last owner wanted to have it, which is also kind of cool. Yep, hold open works. Let's check function here. Once again, realistic snap caps. All right, if you hung in there with me this long, I'll put a link down in the description for the realistic snap caps. If you use coupon code MILSERVGarage, you get 10% off. Okay, how could you beat that? Remember, you gotta let it fall. See, I didn't let it fall, and it's not fully turned on the round. See? You gotta let it fall to pick that up. See that? Just turn it around. Oh my God, this bolt gave me some workout today. Again, I did it again. And that's a wrap. So, let me gather my notes. We'll leave it sitting here in all its cleaned, ready to rock and roll beauty. This thing is ready for the range for a test firing. I'm confident that it's interesting with the magazine, and if you're really deft with your pinky, you can get it in there to press the follower down to close the bolt. It's hanging up like that. You can do that if you just be careful with your pinky. Right, so let me get my notes together and let's check out some information on this 308 round, shall we? So the 308. Let's talk about the round a little bit. If you don't mind, I'm going to take a seat over here. Okay. So the 308 originally hit the scene 1952. You see there, its parent cartridge was the 300 Savage. It seemed to have been a very pivotal round back then, that 300 Savage. We spoke about it, very popular. And so here's the size, ballistic performance for guys that understand all of these crazy numbers. I know that the that SSAMI number is very important for what we're going to discuss. And that's the, let's see, I have that written down here. That is the Small Arms and Ammunition Manufacturers Institute, SAAMI, founded in 1926 as, at the urging of the federal government, as an association of the nation's leading manufacturers of firearms, ammunition, and components, tasked with creating, standardizing, and publishing technical firearms and ammunition data in order to promote quality, reliability, interchangeability, and safety within the firearms manufacturing and shooting communities. Now these guys, they have a different pressure rating for 308, which is that is considered like the civilian name for this round. But this was originally started to be developed by the military. So during the 40s, 3006 fell out of favor with the U.S. Army. And that's interesting. I mean, we went through World War I and World War II with the darn thing, and it did pretty good, 3006, right? So what was it exactly that caused this? They're saying here they wanted a new rifle caliber with performance compatible to the proven 3006, but with a shorter overall length. A lot of what I'm reading is just that they didn't think it was going to work well for semi-automatic. They're probably coming up with different semi-automatic designs, more advanced than the Grand, and we're having trouble with this incredibly large round, you know, the 3006. So, I mean, here, bounce back over to me and we'll take a look at the 3006 in comparison. And yeah, that's a considerable difference in size. So they were settling on this. They were settling on case size 51 millimeters long with a 30 caliber bullet, which is where 7.62 by 51 comes in. And this all came about by this with this development of this T65 series of experimental cartridges. And it was a series where they were trying out different things. They started with the 300 Savage case, but with less taper. And the cases were made from standard 3006 Springfield cases, which gave little less capacity than the standard 300 Savage because the walls were thicker. And later T65 iterations were lengthened compared to the original T65 case. And they were coming up with performance that was basically equal to the 3006 Springfield cartridge. And of course, you had over 40 years of progress with propellants and projectile technology to help out as well. And but before they could actually introduce it to military, Winchester, they saw a market for the civilian market. They saw a hole that they could fill with that, and they jumped in there in 1952 ahead of the military. It says here 2 years prior to the NATO adoption of the T65E5 experimental cartridge iteration under 7.62 by 51 NATO. But I see other things that say 57. But figure, see, because in 57, the reason why 57 was important because that's when the M14 was adopted. But apparently, they adopted the round a few years earlier, but just didn't have anything to use it in. And the first thing that they came out with it in was the M14. But the military jumped on it a couple of years later. But Winchester's, the guns that they used for it were the Model 70, the Model 88, and the Model 100 rifles, which were a bolt action, a lever action, and the semi-auto that we're looking at here, the Model 100. And this was a very popular round, boy. It was for hunting, target shooting, silhouette shooting, bench rest target shooting, military sniping, police sharpshooting. The list goes on. This was a very, very popular round. And some of the stuff that I highlighted here, there's a big thing. Well, actually, before I get to that, this is some interesting stuff here. It was recognized right away for its power. This round, this is a powerhouse of a round. It was among the calibers recommended, and most of the other ones were much larger bullets. And these were, it was one of the calibers recommended for hunting brown and grizzly bears by the Alaska Department of Game and Fish, and the Canadian Arctic Rangers chose the Colt Canada C19 in 308 Winchester as their gun for polar bear defense in 2014. And that definitely demonstrates how powerful it really was. Clay Harvey, an American gunwriter, said it's usable on moose and elk. And in Africa, 308 Winchester was one of the most popular calibers among bushveld hunters, and was used in anything from Dukier, whatever those are, right up to the massive eland which are a small and a large African antelope, respectively. Now, this is interesting. Proponents of the hydrostatic shock theory, and you got to read about that if you don't. I mean, you could delve into all this stuff I'm telling you. This is just the jumping off point, and you go dig into this stuff with the 308. There's tons of information here. But this hydrostatic shock theory is something you got to read about if you don't know about it. And I've heard about it before, but looked around a little more than usual this time, looking into it. And supposedly it just has to do with if a projectile hits with a certain amount of energy. There are people that believe there's a thing called hydrostatic shock, which, when there's just a rapidly expanding bullet, like transferring a lot of energy all at once, literally does something neurological and can break bones far away from the actual impact site of the round. Like, it's almost like a shock wave kind of thing that supposedly just stops things in its tracks. You know what I mean? That if it hit even a large animal, it's not like it has to bleed out or things like that or whatever. That just the actual shock of getting hit does something neurological to just shut them off, like turn them off like a light switch. And there are people there are people that swear by this, that hunters. You know what I mean? I'm not really a hunter. I can't say that I saw anything like that for myself, but the people that believe in these large, powerful calibers for that reason. A little bit of interesting ballistic stuff that I have here. 308 Winchester has slightly more drop at long range than the 3006 Springfield, owing to its slightly lower 100 foot per second muzzle velocity. With most bullet weights. Here's the trajectory comparison between 308 3006 and 300 Winchester Magnum. And as you can see, just by the chart there, it's not much of a drop. 100, 200, 300 yards. It's almost the same. And if you've ever seen the 300 Winchester Magnum, just what that round looks like, or the 3006. See, these are rounds, 300 Winchester Magnum and 3006, have tremendously more recoil. So that's the thing about the 308, is that it's a similar performance, but with a much less recoil. I had some charts with like recoil statistics and stuff, but I mean, how far could we go right here? But there's one other topic I just wanted to cover, which is that you hear there's a lot of talk about, probably the most talk about 308 and 7.62 by 51 is, are they interchangeable? And there's a ton of stuff on this. I just from what I'm reading and what I'm looking at, I would say if you have a rifle chambered for 308, use 308. If you have a military rifle that's calls for 7.62 by 51, use that. I never went by that whole thing. There's the same thing with that Russian round and the Mauser. What is that one again? I actually have it here. I have the realistic snap caps for that one too, but you know what I'm talking about. There's around the Makarov. Is it the Makarov round, or is it the I think I have it right here somewhere. Let's see. I don't have those available, but the bottom line is I think they call them something different for a reason, and I like this one article I'm reading here that says, while the external dimensions look identical, there are virtually imperceptible differences which, when combined with the differences in the two chamber dimensions, result in different head spacings for each caliber. The 7.62 NATO is designed with two key factors in mind: the ability to facilitate smoother insertion and extraction of rounds during automatic fire, because it was used for machine guns, and the ability to handle the inevitably looser tolerances of ammunition manufactured by different NATO members. So the chambers of the guns are designed with a little bit more forgiveness, let's say, looser. The 7.62 by 51 NATO chamber is imperceptibly longer than the 308 Winchester, extending between .006 and .010 inches beyond the 308 SAAMI specs for 308. This results in a 7.62 case that is ever so slightly longer than its commercial brother. This means that when firing a 308 round in a 7.62 chamber, the 308 brass will stretch beyond its intended elastic range. This could have some potentially expensive consequences. Can you shoot 7.62 by 51 in the same rifles as 308 Winchester and vice versa? Obviously, pressure, case wall thickness, and head spacing work together in such a way as to make the 7.62 by 51 NATO and the 308 Winchester unique cartridges despite their very obvious similarities. So, can you shoot 7.62 through a 308 chambered firearm? Is the reverse possible? The short answers to these questions are yes and maybe. And this is just the advice of this guy writing the article, but I happen to go along these lines. The vast majority of rifles, carbines, and pistols chambered in 308 Winchester can safely shoot 7.62 by 51 NATO and extract the thicker casings despite the longer headspace. That said, we wouldn't make a habit of it. Doing the opposite is a bit more complicated. 7.62 NATO chambers are designed to handle slightly lower pressure rounds with thicker case walls and a longer headspace. That means that when you pull the trigger, 7.62 by 51 brass expands less outwardly but farther toward the chamber. When you switch this out with 308 Winchester round, the increased pressure, thinner walls, and extra space around the cartridge have the potential to cause the case to expand past its point of maximum elasticity. This results in ruptured cases, and that can cause injury. Most 7.62 by 51 chambered firearms are spec'd to safely handle 308 cartridges, but older NATO chambered guns are not. And this military surplus thing is where it could become an issue. Military guns. This means throwing 308 rounds into the magazine of a 20-year-old M14 is not a good idea. But if you have a newer 7.62 rifle, such as the civilian SCAR 17 or an AR-10, always double check with the manufacturer to determine whether they recommend 308 rounds. But if you have any doubts, stick with the NATO rounds, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. Basically, the 308 brass is made for civilian use, so it's made to be reloaded. It's made to closer tolerances. The military stuff, that brass was never meant to be reloaded, and the tolerances are much greater. They're just not quite so tight to allow for dirt, just mass producing of rifles and ammunition to the larger tolerances would make it function reliably. And so that's the story. And yeah, there's a lot of parent cases here. Check this out. I get some. Come back on over to me over here. Let's zoom out a little bit. So this is the 308 right here. And again, there's the 3006 there next to it. It's Big Daddy. It's the round that it replaced. And here we got the, here's the 300 Savage right here, where it was originally, when they started doing experiments, they started with the 300 Savage. And they really liked it. Look, you could definitely see that they didn't really stray far from what Mr. Savage had going on way back when, right? And here's a case that it was, there's a 6mm bullet in here. What are these, 243 again, right? 243 Winchester. And Realistic Snap Caps makes all of these, by the way. So if you have anything chambered in these are definitely what you need to use for testing, let's say. So, yep, that's basically the gist of it there. We did a lot of work with this guy, right? With this rifle. Let's take a look. Let's bring it back up for a goodbye. And well, yeah, see how nice that when that BLO has a day to sink in, like it's not wet or sticky or anything anymore. Not luster. You kind of like buff it with a rag, a towel or a rag. And this thing, I'm really glad you hung in there with me. It's a little different, huh? Like going through the rifle and taking it apart. I never did anything with it before. It was what I would normally do, like amateur hour, where you're learning for the first time. You might take something apart wrong or put it back together wrong. And if I did the whole video over again, I was thinking about it. And I was saying, like, why have a video where you don't know what you're doing? Maybe you just have a video now. You know how to put it together now. You learned. But I think I'm glad YouTube's letting me take them apart and put them back together without burying the video. And you know, this is what it's all about. I kind of liked doing it this way, and I decided to keep it like this because I like taking you along for showing you exactly. Just, you have to be patient. You have to look. You have to use your reading materials, do your research, take your time. It's kind of like that doctor thing, like first do no harm. And that's what the realistic snap caps are all about. The reason why we're using these realistic snap caps in here is that first do no harm. And that if you don't know what's going on with the firing pin, you're not sure what's going on with the action, you're going to be testing things. And we saw I put it back together. I wasn't 100% sure if the bolt was even together right. And you could just go to check to see if you did it right with some live ammo, and maybe you mess something up and the firing pin isn't in right and it's protruding, and these accidents happen. They happen all the time, and there's only one way to ensure that you don't have an actual accidental discharge. I mean, obviously we're working with real guns. You could have fake guns and real ammo. Even then, real ammo is right there scares me, because even a fake gun could accidentally set off real ammo. I kind of like the, but one thing is, like if it's a fake gun and real ammo could still be a problem, but whether it's a fake gun or a real gun, if the ammo is inert, you're not going to have any bullets being fired. The only way that's going to happen is with live ammunition. So just eliminating the live ammo from the equation, then it doesn't matter if the guns are real or not. It doesn't matter if they're replica guns, real guns, but you know, it makes no difference. That's the one factor that you got to eliminate, is your live ammunition in your testing process. And okay, sorry, where were we? So I'm just saying I'm glad I put together a video that way, just to show what it is to take apart one that's a little complicated. This was a little complicated. It was a little different for me. You know what I mean? It's I'm not used to this type of action here. You know, this type of rotating bolt. It's like a more modern type of gas action, you know, gas operation here that just I wasn't familiar with. And I do like that whole, how far you got to yank this handle in. You got to remember when cycling it how to just let go like that. You can't baby one like this. You have to crank it and let it drop in order to be able to cycle these rounds. Again, for people that might be tuning in right now, these are inert. They're realistic snap caps. They don't even have primers. You could see where the firing pin's hitting them too. That was something that's important when you do the testing, is that you can actually see that you're getting a nice primer strike, and you could look right at that silicone and even see how good of a shot, you know, it's actually getting. And again, you could pinky this closed. Well, you don't have to remove the magazine if you're brave, but just be really careful. And yeah, it was fun. It was fun doing the disassembly like that. And think I might try something like that again in the future. And if you notice, you weren't with me the whole time. There was good like half hour, 45-minute stretches in there where I was just going over things, cleaning little parts, being meticulous. I mean, how crazy could I be? I'm not going to do like a 5-hour video on taking a gun apart. I'll have nobody after the first half hour. You know what I mean? And this one I'm sure is going long. There's a whole bunch of clips that I got to stitch together here and edit everything out. And I'm sure this one's going way long. If you're still with me right here and right now, you're listening to me, this is what it's all about. And that's why I keep this channel alive, is because of the people that are here right now. So, yeah, I never solicit likes or subscriptions or clicking bells or anything like that. And I do that for a reason, is because I don't want someone to go like, hey, yeah, whatever, the guy's asking, so I'm going to do it. No, I want people to go like, wow, this is what I like to watch. This is kind of cool. And I know that when I see someone subscribed and get views, that it's what people really want to see, and not like like a solicitation. So glad to have you. Glad you hung in there. And I got to get to the range. This is crazy that there's just really no. I'm going to the trap range a lot, but I just can't seem to get myself to the my pistol range. Like they closed during COVID. I was kind of pissed off that I had just paid my dues and they were closed for a year. And then I thought for sure I'd walk in there and they'd be like, yeah, we were closed for a year. We'll give you the year back. You know what I mean? And they were just kind of like, no, not only are we not giving you the year, we're raising our membership rates like by 40% or something like that, or maybe even more. It was almost like 50% higher. And I don't know, it kind of turned me off to the place. I've been looking for just like a new indoor range that I could have a membership to, that I could go to. And in the outdoor range is just right now bogged down for a while with the hunting people. You know what I mean? Where those guys are pretty serious. So that's it. That's all I got on this guy. Hope it was enough information for you, but I really like this thing. I really do. I'm sure I forgot 8 million things that I wanted to talk about. But hey, we could always do a revisit one of these days. And and I got to get out to the range and put a couple of mags through it. And I got some ammunition for it, by the way, which was because I don't have .308. There hasn't been a caliber that I've had to buy in like a long time. But I went out and I bought a nice chunk of .308. I found it, you know what it is? The FMJ is considerably less expensive than all the soft point, hollow point kind of stuff that's out there, because it is a big hunting round. So if there's any gouging on ammo prices going on right now, December of 21, things are improving a little bit. So I just saw a huge improvement in the FMJ for the .308. And this is where is this stuff made again? I forgot. Where does it set it on here? It's kind of like a let's see, where is it? Well, it says Houston, but I think this is Korean. This is like made in South Korea, I think. But notice it doesn't say it. Made in Korea. I'm right. Yeah, it was this this PMC stuff. But I was able to get it. At a decent price because it's full metal jacket. And I guess it's like, is it like illegal to hunt with full metal jacket or something like that? So I got some ammo, and we'll get to the range soon and we'll test this thing out. Until then, you all hang in there. Have a wonderful holiday season. Merry Christmas to everybody. Hope your stockings are full of lots of gun stuff, stuffed with gun stuff. And treat yourself. Go out there, get that firearm that you've been thinking about, that you're wondering if you should buy. Just go do it. Treat yourself. Treat yourself to a gift this year. You deserve it. After all we've been through the last couple of years here, you deserve it. And see you all soon in the 2022. And we will continue from there. See you all later.
Yes.